Happy Easter, everyone. I hope you have a lovely time with family, just resting or going to church, whatever you are doing. I planted my tomatoes yesterday and painted the boards for the deck. I must still repot about 10 plants. I did about 15 yesterday and planted the gooseberries. Oh well, we'll see how far I get this weekend. Okay, but being a long weekend and a rather special one during which I reflect a little more than I do, say, over Christmas. Christmas for me is fun and joyful, full of promise, the joy of birth, a new beginning. But Easter for me is the end or death of one thing and the beginning of another. It is a sort of time to count your chickens and clean out your cupboards, if that makes sense to you. Anyway, let's talk about the royals. Now, for the second time in a row, William and Catherine had chosen not to spend Easter at Windsor, as is the tradition. Instead, they are choosing to spend time with their children at their home in Norfolk. William and Catherine also chose not to attend the Easter service last year, which was slightly more understandable because it was shortly after Catherine received her diagnosis. But, what is the excuse this year? I want to ask you a few questions because often if I tell you things, you doubt me, or I get accused by some that I hate Charles, blah, blah, blah. So instead of telling you, I'm going to have you make up your own mind. The Maundy service, usually held the day before Good Friday, has always been a favourite of the Queen's, and the Queen was always supported by a family, in particular her granddaughters Beatrice or Eugenie, her husband, or a myriad of other family members who always left the service with a smile. This year it seems to just have been Charles and Camilla. Now, I do hear that other senior members will join Charles for the Easter service, likely Edward and Sophie, Anne and Tim Lawrence. That sounds pretty grim. Anyway, it's not actually the point I wanted to make. The real question is, we are all so taken up with whether King Charles has ever seen both of Harry's children or not, or if he will ever again meet them in the flesh, etc. But we forget to ask the same of William's children. We know they attended Sandringham Christmas 2024, but they attended the church service, did the walk after church, and left. William was in a hurry. Remember how he rushed Catherine along? Well, that was because he wanted to get to Sandringham before tea or lunch was served, as he did not want to be obliged to stay. So, except for Christmas, when do you think George, Charlotte, and Louis last saw their grandfather? And why would you think that is? Because mommy and daddy is too busy to take them, or the king is just too busy to receive them? 2 years in a row, William and his family did not attend the Easter service or the Easter get-together. Now, I've not heard of any other family get-togethers that they actually went to between Christmas and Easter. So what is going on? Their Adelaide cottage is less than 5 minutes away from Windsor Castle. Okay, now mull over that while I prepare the next question. Now, you guys can go look it up. In 2002, there was the Commonhold and Leasehold Reform Act, which introduced Commonhold. That was a huge relief, but not for all, because the Duchy of Cornwall was excluded from the new reform. Then in 2022, there was yet another reform, and again last year in 2024. Now, Charles had always been fighting this for many, many years and managed to get the duchy excluded from these reforms, but not William. William has by now implemented the reforms in most towns and counties in Cornwall, or those falling under the management of the Duchy of Cornwall. Remember, they don't just own properties in Cornwall itself. But quietly, William did it and is still doing it, and has also given duchy land to be used for the Homeward project. So do you think that his father was extremely thrilled by his actions? The list of differences and disagreements are long. Even when it comes to Andrew and Harry, William is definitely not a fan of Uncle Andrew, but William has nothing against his cousins. Well, he had a bit of an issue with Eugenie, but it had been resolved, and no, it was not just because of Harry and their friendship. There was a time when Eugenie was not too kind to Catherine either. But all of that is in the past, and I'm told that William could not give a fig whether Andrew stays in Royal Lodge or not. William would much rather spend the time to find a way to stop Harry and Meghan embarrassing the royal family and selling their titles and royal family connection. Well, do you think Charles agrees with William on that? Okay, now, I can keep you here all day and night and go into every little detail, but I am instead going to go to the biggest issues. The one, as far as I can tell, is indeed fact, and the other one, although one of the biggest issues, remains speculation. But I personally think it is more than likely true. Okay, so here goes. I'm told, or was told, quite a while ago, maybe even a year or more, I am not sure. I do not always keep or date my tips, but I'm practically sure I mentioned it in a previous video a while ago. Anyway, I was told that there's an issue between Charles and William with regards to Charles's will and testament. I honestly do not know the details of that particular rift, but I have a few ideas which I would rather not express right here or right now. It is not the time or place to do so, or for that matter, the right thing to do. I think and feel it is extremely nasty and cheap and common to speculate about someone's will while they are still alive. The kind of thing a Meghan Markle would do. I wouldn't. Anyway, I've been told by a very trusted source that William is unhappy and angry about something or things, multiple things, in his father's will. And I'm going to say that this is likely true and thus a fact. Likely, allegedly, and so on for legal reasons. Okay, now the next thing is also huge, but although I think the rumor plays into everything we have already now mentioned, I cannot promise you that it is indeed true. Okay, now someone else told me that some of the issues between Charles and his children are caused by Camilla. Now, please do not shoot me. In the past, I held a lot back because I wasn't sure whether it was true or not. Well, no more. It did not make me more popular to try and be so hyper honest. And when things I said proved to be true days, weeks, or months later, I did not get the credit for it. I often hear other creators say, "Oh, I was the first one to talk about this," or "I was the first one," and then I know, but I've actually said it like a month ago. Anyway, let's move on. Things I kept to myself because I did not know whether it was true or not was later told by another creator, and they did not care and repeated the story in their videos. So I'm still going to be a little more discerning than the average Joe, but I'm also going to trust you more and allow you to decide whether something is plausible or not. So having said that, let's carry on with this. Firstly, I'm told that Charles wants to see Harry. Charles is well aware of everything Harry says and does. Different from when the Queen was sick, nothing is kept from Charles. He still reads a couple of newspapers in the morning and one or two in the evening, just like his mother did. So he knows everything we know and likely more, because he is the king and has MI6 and MI5 reporting to him when necessary. I also know that not the king himself, but some of his staff checks social media for him. So most of everything we say here and on Instagram, X, TikTok, etc. reaches the king's ears if the staff member thinks it is necessary for him to know something. I also know that staff are often told to leak certain stories which are not always true in order to steer the narrative in a certain direction. So quite frankly, I do not always 100% believe or trust things coming from Buckingham Palace, whether through mainstream media or social media. Not even the so-called statements put out by the palace itself. And that, my dears, you can also take to the bank. I believed palace statements until a year or so after the Queen handed over the majority of the so-called business and administration elements to her successor. Anyway, I keep interrupting myself. So Charles wants to see Harry regardless of knowing almost exactly and likely more than us what Harry is up to. Charles would like to see his other grandchildren, but more than that, he wants to see and talk to his son. So the last time when Harry rushed over to see Charles, he basically saw him for 12 minutes. Fair enough, it was an unplanned visit and Charles was on his way to Scotland, I think. Well, Charles had the royal helicopter waiting, and of course there may have been other people waiting for him on the other side. So although he could have told the pilot to stand down for an hour, maybe he had appointments on the other side. But he could have invited Harry along for a day or so. But that did not happen. But worse than that, it is fairly well known among palace courtiers that Harry was never alone with his father. Camilla was there all the time. Hovering was the word they used. It is also told to me that it was Camilla who ended the visit because Pa was tired and they had to go so he could rest. I'm told that it is also Camilla conspiring with the king's aides to divert him elsewhere when either of his sons wants to see him. The answer is always that he is too tired or too busy. However, according to this person, the doors are always open to Camilla's children and grandchildren. She told a friend, allegedly for legal reasons, that having her children and even her ex-husband over is quite different because Charles does not have to interrupt his schedule for them. There's also the purchase of the home next to Camilla's, supposedly to preserve her privacy and to keep it quiet. I'm told it is not 100% true. Allegedly, it will be used by a family member of Camilla's. My informant wasn't sure who, but thinks it may be Camilla's one sister. Allegedly, for a while, after the coronation and until fairly recently, things were a bit tense between Charles and Camilla, but according to my informant, the gift of some pieces of jewelry, the opening of another vault door, and the purchase of that house changed a lot of things. And suddenly it appears that the two lovebirds are as tight as before. Okay, my dear viewers, listeners, and subscribers, I'm going to leave things right here for now. You can make of the information what you will. I apologize for the awkward cuts as I have a proper seasonal cold. Very typical. Sore throat, blocked ears, sneezing, runny nose, and at about 14 minutes 54, 55 thereabouts, I had to stop the recording because I had a nosebleed. It is likely just because of all the blowing and wiping. It stopped very quickly. So guys, I'm going to take off, have a rest, and later this afternoon I'll continue the repotting. Please take care of yourselves until we meet again on the next one. Bye.